dear friends and colleagues. You know, this is the beginning of a new year, and I've been seeing online and I've been talking to many of our colleagues, and everybody seems to be talking about uh, how the year ended on a high note because they were able to adapt to the new changes, to adapt to the new reality that we as interpreters face. And that's okay. But I think that our colleagues are just patting themselves on the back way too much without really stopping to think the things that they have given up, the things that they have given in, and how the new reality is shaping up to be not the best possible solution for us as interpreters. I'm going to take two different issues here to illustrate my point. First, let's talk about court interpreters in the United States and in most countries in the world. Obviously, because of the pandemic, a lot of hearings were cancelled or were continued, a lot of trials were cancelled or continued, but little by little, most of the court work came back for interpreters on a remote basis. They started doing a lot of different remote interpreting, a lot of distance interpreting. The courthouses, the district courts, the judiciary in different places started to realize that this was going to take a long time, and they acquired or updated some of their platforms to be able to do their hearings, to hold their trials, or some other type of proceedings online. Interpreters, therefore, were asked to work at a distance. But unfortunately, in most cases, the courthouses, the courtrooms did not acquire the appropriate platform, and interpreters were faced with working with platforms that had already been acquired by the system, or new ones that were purchased but at the bare bones version, the cheapest version, because it could satisfy the fact that they could have a teleconference between attorneys and the litigants, but leaving a lot out as far as the interpreter needs. So interpreters were faced with doing their job at a distance using a telephone line without being able to see anything about what was going on and doing it on a consecutive mode. Some others started working with two different phone lines so they could do a simultaneous job using one line for the source language and the other one for the destiny language. So this was not the best possible situation. Again, in other cases, the court systems acquired the cheapest possible platform, and for that reason, interpreters ended up doing video interpreting, but using a telephone line or some other platform as the second channel to be able to do the job simultaneously. Some of these platforms, my friends, now are equipped with the possibility of doing simultaneous interpreting with the same platform. In fact, one of them has been ready for that from the beginning of the pandemic. The problem is that the courthouses don't know, the interpreters don't explain, or most likely, and the most common situation is that the courthouses, the court administrators, the judges do not want to spend the money to upgrade that platform and be able to show the service that interpreters require. Interpreters are very happy and they are saying, oh, this is great, we were able to adapt. And they are going with a misconception that to adapt means to MacGyver your way into the system so that you can be working with different devices on different platforms at the same time to deliver your service. That is not adapting. Adapting to the new reality is going from in-person interpreting to distance interpreting, but doing it the appropriate way, doing it with the right platform so that interpreters can do everything simultaneously as they should, so that interpreters can communicate with each other, and even if this has to be through a back channel, that would be better than just using the telephone for the simultaneous interpreting. At the same time, they're using the platform just for the regular hearing. That is wrong. It is also wrong that interpreters have been asked to stay doing this kind of work for hours and hours despite the fact that the cognitive load is so huge, despite the fact that they have to be working with so many devices at the same time, because the courts don't understand, the courts don't want to understand, and interpreters are just very happy that they are adapting instead of demanding the appropriate conditions. The second example that I'm going to give you has to do with conference interpreting. And we have a problem where a lot of people that were not doing conference work because of the pandemic are doing this work. Most of them come from the community interpreting fields. They are used to a different type of work, they are used to different rhythm, and they are used to do consistently pretty much the same or very similar work. That is not how conference works. When you do conference interpreting, as an interpreter, you must research, you must study, you must practice before you go into the booth, or in this case, the virtual booth, to deliver your service. Unfortunately, a lot of the agencies, and now the platforms turned agencies that call themselves something like workplaces, are requiring interpreters to work on demand. That is, that interpreters are working with a very short notice, sometimes just 2-hour notice, and doing a service. That is okay if you're working in court, where pretty much the interpretation is going to be the same, just changing the facts, but not much more than that. In fact, court interpreters are used to go to the courthouse in the morning without really knowing what cases they will interpret that day, and they do an excellent job because they know what to do and because there's consistency with what they do. However, conference interpreting is different. Conference interpreting covers all different aspects of life, all different fields of knowledge, and it requires of preparation. Conference interpreters do not show up in the morning and wait to see what they will interpret that day. However, agencies and these on-demand platforms have decided that interpreters that are used to that, doing community work, can deliver the job, and therefore they can show up and interpret a conference on short notice. That is not right, friends, because what we are doing here is that if we as conference interpreting are taking the job, is that we are adapting by diminishing the quality of our product. We are adapting by accepting work conditions that are unacceptable. We are adapting by cheapening our profession, because now we are working just like some other telephonic interpreters do, on standby, ready for the phone call or the video call, and start talking, start interpreting. And of course, quality suffers. On the other hand, because the system is adapting the community interpreter business models, and interpreters are going for it because they are adapting to the new reality, professional fees have been offered and have been paid, and interpreters have agreed to deliver the service on an hourly basis. Why? Because community interpreters can work on an hourly basis, because if they get paid a 2-hour minimum for a job that usually takes less than 2 hours, they will be satisfied. Their effort will be compensated. Now, as far as the amount of payment, that's a different story, but as far as the business model, it's used all over the world, and it is what is widely and universally accepted. On the other hand, you cannot work on an hourly basis for a conference, because even if the conference will last 2 hours, 1 hour, or 3 hours, it would be impossible for interpreters to only charge for 3 hours, because a conference requires, if it's going to be a 3-hour interpretation, at least of twice as many hours of preparation, research, study, practice, and so on. So interpreters could be getting paid a very small fee, or interpreters could be giving away a lot of work for free. It does not work. It's not useful for the interpreting community, and it frankly damages and hurts the profession in more ways than you can imagine. You shouldn't do that, and please stop and think about it. You are not adapting to any new reality when you accept working conditions that are not optimal, when you accept work conditions that put your health in jeopardy, when you accept to work in a way that you are risking your reputation because you are becoming an on-demand interpreter, willing to jump in there and start interpreting without the proper preparation. So please make sure that you do not pat yourselves on the back and say, hey, this is great because I have adapted to the new reality. There is no new reality. New reality is distance interpreting and doing it the right way. Everything else is just giving the profession away. And we should never do that. So please, your purposes of this year, your New Year's determination should be to adapt to the new reality, but not to accept work conditions, business models for fee payments, and other similar situations as part of adapting. The platforms want you to believe that that is adapting. The agencies want you to believe that that is adapting. The greedy direct clients want you to believe that that is adapting, but that is not adapting. That is just giving in, that is just giving up, and that could hurt the profession and harm it for many, many years to come. Please don't do that. Think about it and know the difference between adapting and giving in. At least that is my opinion. Thank you very much.